I'm Braxton Williams, 67 years old, and last year my own son Marcus threw me out of my house after I retired from 40 years of hard work. "Dad, we need the space, and you need to downsize," he said with cold practicality. Little did he know that beneath my simple lifestyle and worn clothes, I had quietly amassed a small fortune over decades. The shock on his face when the truth emerged was almost worth the heartbreak he caused me. Where are you watching from today? Drop a comment below and subscribe to hear how I turned the tables on my ungrateful son. I was born in a small town in Pennsylvania to working-class parents who taught me the value of a dollar from day one. My father worked at the local steel mill, and my mother cleaned houses for the wealthy families in town. They weren't educated people, but they were wise about what mattered in life. "Money comes and goes, Braxton, but character stays forever," my father would tell me while counting pennies at our kitchen table. After high school, I didn't have the means for college, so I learned a trade instead. I became a utilities technician, working my way up from an apprentice to a senior specialist over 4 decades. The work wasn't glamorous, but it was honest and paid well enough. I climbed telephone poles in blizzards, repaired transformers during thunderstorms, and sweated through countless summer heat waves, ensuring people had their power and communications running smoothly. I met my wife Elaine when I was 26. She worked as a receptionist at the utility company's main office. She had the most beautiful smile and a kind word for everyone who walked through the door. We married after just 8 months of dating, and it was the best decision I ever made. Elaine was my perfect match in many ways, especially when it came to financial values. We lived modestly in a 3-bedroom ranch house I purchased for $87,000 back in 1983. We drove used cars, shopped sales, and treated ourselves to a nice dinner out maybe once a month. Not because we had to live that way, but because we chose to. Our son Marcus came along 3 years into our marriage. He was our only child, and I won't deny that we probably spoiled him more than we should have. Elaine especially had a soft spot for the boy. "He should have opportunities we never had," she would say whenever I questioned buying him something expensive. And so Marcus grew up with everything he needed and most of what he wanted. Despite our modest lifestyle, we made sure Marcus never went without. He had the best toys, played on travel sports teams, attended summer camps, and wore brand-name clothes that cost 3 times what I would spend on my own wardrobe. Looking back, I realized this might have sent mixed messages about our values. As Marcus entered his teenage years, I noticed he began comparing our lifestyle to his friends' families. "Dad, why don't we upgrade to a bigger house in Lakeside Estates? Justin's family just built a 5-bedroom there with a pool." Or "Why are we still driving this old Honda when everyone else's parents have new SUVs?" Each time, I would explain that we were comfortable as we were, and that appearances weren't worth going into debt for. When Marcus graduated high school with honors, he was accepted to Cornell University. I was bursting with pride, even though the tuition nearly gave me a heart attack. 4 years at an Ivy League school would cost more than our house. But Elaine and I had been saving since the day he was born, and with some scholarships, we managed to pay his way through without student loans. "This is the best investment we can make," I told Elaine as we wrote those painful tuition checks. During those college years, Marcus changed. He joined a fraternity full of wealthy kids and came home with new perspectives that troubled me. He talked about summer homes, luxury cars, and future career paths almost exclusively in terms of earning potential. The values we had tried to instill seemed to be slipping away. It was during Marcus's junior year that Elaine was diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer. Despite fighting bravely through rounds of chemotherapy and radiation, we lost her just 14 months later. I was devastated. My partner of 30 years, gone. Marcus seemed affected deeply at first, but within months he had returned to school and his social life, calling home less and less frequently. After graduating with a business degree, Marcus landed a job at a financial services firm in the city. He started dating Stephanie, a young woman from a well-established family whose father was a corporate attorney. She was beautiful, articulate, and clearly used to a certain lifestyle. When they got engaged after just 1 year of dating, I was surprised but supportive. Throughout all these years, I had been quietly building my nest egg. Since my 30s, I had been investing 25% of my salary, plus every bonus and bit of overtime pay. I lived by the philosophy that if you didn't see the money, you wouldn't spend it. Elaine had been the same way. We never discussed our growing investments with Marcus. We wanted him to develop his own work ethic and values, not wait for an inheritance. By the time I approached retirement at 66, my investments had performed beyond my wildest expectations. The utilities company had a solid pension plan. I had maxed out my 401 Kelvin's contributions for decades, and I had made some surprisingly good decisions in the stock market. My financial advisor, Jackson, would laugh and call me his blue-collar millionaire during our annual reviews. My retirement party was a modest affair at the local VFW hall. Marcus and Stephanie drove down for it, and Marcus gave a nice speech about how hard I had worked all these years. "My dad's always been the most reliable man I know," he told the room full of my coworkers and friends. "Always there when you need him, never complaining about the long hours or tough conditions." I remember feeling so proud that day, watching my son speak confidently to the room, thinking perhaps he did understand and appreciate the values I had tried to live by. How wrong I was. Within weeks of cleaning out my locker for the last time, I would discover just how much Marcus's values had shifted away from mine. Just 3 months before my retirement, Marcus called with exciting news. He and Stephanie had found their dream home in Brookhaven, one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in the city. "Dad, it's perfect. 5 bedrooms, 3-car garage, and a backyard that backs up to the golf course," he gushed over the phone. When he mentioned the asking price of $1.2 million, I nearly choked. "That's quite a commitment for a young couple," I said carefully. "Well, that's partly why I'm calling," Marcus said, his voice taking on that persuasive tone I recognized from when he was a teenager, asking for something expensive. "We're a little short on the down payment. The bank wants 20%, and we've only got about half that's saved." I hesitated, thinking of the lessons about financial responsibility I had tried to teach him. But then he mentioned they were planning to start a family soon, and I thought about having grandchildren in a safe, beautiful neighborhood. Against my better judgment, I agreed to loan him $120,000, which I strongly suspected would never be repaid. What bothered me most was discovering later that Marcus had told Stephanie the money was from his own savings. "I don't want her family thinking we needed help," he explained when I asked about it. That was the first real warning sign that Marcus cared more about appearances than honesty. After selling my house following Elaine's passing, I had been renting a small apartment. When Marcus suggested I move in with them after my retirement, it seemed like a kind gesture. "We've got plenty of space, Dad. You can have the guest suite downstairs. It'll save you rent, and you can spend time with the grandkids when they come along." I moved in 2 weeks after my retirement. The house was certainly impressive, with its soaring ceilings, marble countertops, and professionally landscaped yard. My suite was comfortable, with a bedroom, small sitting area, and private bathroom. Initially, things went well. I tried to make myself useful by handling small repairs around the house and cooking dinner several nights a week. 6 months after I moved in, Stephanie announced she was pregnant. Everyone was thrilled, especially me. I had been looking forward to being a grandfather since Marcus got married. Throughout Stephanie's pregnancy, I busied myself preparing for the baby, assembling furniture for the nursery, and reading books about modern childcare practices. Thomas was born on a snowy February morning, a healthy 8-pound boy with Marcus's eyes and Stephanie's nose. I fell in love with my grandson instantly. 2 years later, little Abigail joined the family. I treasured those early years with my grandchildren, reading them stories, taking them to the park, and teaching Thomas to ride his tricycle. But as the children grew, I began noticing subtle changes in my relationship with Marcus and Stephanie. What started as occasional comments about needing privacy for family time became more frequent requests for me to make myself scarce. "Dad, we're having some of Stephanie's work friends over tonight. Would you mind eating dinner in your room?" Marcus's career was taking off. He had been promoted several times, and now managed a team of financial analysts. With his rising status came an increasing obsession with appearances. He upgraded his car to a German luxury sedan. Stephanie began wearing designer clothes exclusively, and they hired a landscaping service to maintain their perfect yard. I overheard conversations that troubled me deeply. One evening, as I was returning from a walk, I heard Marcus and Stephanie in the kitchen. "Your dad means well, but he's becoming a financial burden," Stephanie was saying. "We're paying for all his groceries, his share of the utilities, and he's always there, using everything." "I know," Marcus replied with a sigh. "But what can I do? He doesn't have much saved up from what I can tell. His pension barely covers his personal expenses." I stood frozen outside the door, my heart sinking. Financial burden? I had been contributing $500 monthly toward household expenses, an amount Marcus had insisted was more than enough. I had also paid for multiple household appliance upgrades and repairs without mentioning it, considering it my contribution to the household. The next morning, I discreetly increased my monthly contribution to $800 without explanation. Marcus accepted the extra money without question, which told me everything I needed to know about how he viewed my presence. As the weeks passed, I noticed more troubling signs. I was no longer included in dinner party invitations. When friends of Marcus and Stephanie visited, I was introduced quickly and then expected to retreat to my room. The grandchildren were increasingly enrolled in structured activities that kept them busy and away from the house, limiting my time with them. One Saturday morning, I was enjoying coffee with Thomas and Abigail, now 5 and 3 years old, when Stephanie came into the kitchen looking annoyed. "Thomas has soccer in 30 minutes, and Abigail has a play date. They need to eat quickly and get ready." "I can take Thomas to soccer," I offered cheerfully. "I'd love to watch him play." Stephanie's smile was tight. "That's sweet, but the other parents always organize a coffee meetup during practice. It's kind of a social thing for the adults." The message was clear. I wouldn't fit in with their social circle. That afternoon, I called my old friend Frank and met him for lunch, needing to escape the growing tension in the house. "They make me feel like an intruder in their perfect life," I confided in him. Frank, never one to mince words, looked at me seriously. "Braxton, why are you putting up with this? You've got options they don't even know about." I shook my head. "I want to be near my grandchildren, and revealing my financial situation now would only make things awkward. They'd feel foolish, or worse, they'd only want me around for what I could give them." But as the months wore on, even my desire to be close to Thomas and Abigail couldn't outweigh the discomfort of living where I clearly wasn't wanted. The final straw was approaching faster than I realized. Nearly 18 months after I had moved in with Marcus and Stephanie, they hosted a dinner party to celebrate Marcus's latest promotion to senior vice president. The house was filled with coworkers and friends I barely knew, all congratulating my son on his achievement. I felt proud watching him network confidently among his peers, even as I felt increasingly out of place in his world. Later that evening, after the guests had departed, Marcus, Stephanie, and I sat in the living room with glasses of expensive scotch Marcus had received as a gift. "With the new position, I'll be needing a proper home office," Marcus announced. "I'll be working from home 2 days a week and hosting client meetings occasionally." I nodded, waiting for him to continue, sensing there was more to this conversation. "We've been thinking," Stephanie jumped in, her voice carefully measured, "that it might be time for you to find your own place, Braxton. The guest suite would make a perfect office space for Marcus." The directness of the statement caught me off guard. I looked at my son, expecting him to soften his wife's words, but he simply nodded in agreement. "I've done some research on senior apartments in the area," Marcus added, not quite meeting my eyes. "There are several nice communities with people your age, much more suitable than rattling around in this big house." "Senior apartments?" I repeated slowly. "I'm retired, not infirm. I don't need a community with people my age." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Dad, be reasonable. You can't just live with us indefinitely. We need our space. And frankly, with your limited income, you should be thinking about affordable options for the long term." There it was, the assumption that had been hovering unspoken between us, that I was financially dependent, a charity case they had graciously accommodated until it became inconvenient. "How much do you think I have saved, Marcus?" I asked quietly. He shrugged. "I don't know exactly. Your pension from the utility company is what, $3,000 a month? And maybe you've got some savings, but nothing substantial, I imagine. Utility workers don't exactly retire rich." His condescending tone struck me like a physical blow. This was my son, who I had put through an Ivy League education, helped buy a luxury home, and raised to respect people regardless of their financial status. "I see," was all I could manage to say. I excused myself and went to my room, lying awake most of the night contemplating what to do next. Over the next few weeks, I made an effort to spend more time with Thomas and Abigail, knowing that my days under the same roof were numbered. I took Thomas fishing at a nearby pond, teaching him how to bait a hook and cast his line patiently. I helped Abigail build elaborate fairy houses in the backyard, using twigs, leaves, and flowers. These moments were precious, but increasingly rare, as Stephanie began scheduling more activities and playdates during times when I was available. "The children need socialization with their peers," she explained, when I questioned why Thomas needed 3 different sports and Abigail needed both dance and gymnastics at such young ages. One afternoon, I overheard Stephanie on the phone with her mother. "It's becoming a real problem," she was saying in a hushed voice. "He's constantly interfering with our parenting decisions. Yesterday, he gave Thomas ice cream right before dinner, after I specifically said no." I stepped away, hurt by the characterization. The ice cream had been a single small scoop after Thomas had fallen and scraped his knee. Such a minor thing to complain about, yet it was being presented as undermining their authority. Marcus became increasingly irritated by my presence. Small annoyances became major issues. "Dad, do you have to watch television so late?" The sound carries upstairs. Or, "Dad, we've talked about leaving your shoes in the entryway. It looks cluttered." I began spending more time away from the house, visiting the local library or meeting old friends for coffee, just to escape the tension. When I was home, I tried to make myself as unobtrusive as possible, often eating quick meals alone in my room. Then came the day I returned from a doctor's appointment to find several cardboard boxes stacked outside my suite. Entering my room, I discovered Marcus and Stephanie inside, sorting through my belongings. "What's going on?" I asked, stunned by this invasion of privacy. Marcus barely looked up. "We're helping you get organized for the move. I found a 1-bedroom apartment in Ridgewood Senior Living. It's available next month." "You're packing my things without even discussing this with me?" I couldn't believe what was happening. "We discussed it several weeks ago," Stephanie said dismissively. "You need to be practical about this, Braxton. The retirement community has meals included and activities. You'll be much happier there." "And what if I don't want to move to a retirement home?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. Marcus finally stopped what he was doing and faced me. "Dad, this isn't a request. We need the space. Thomas will be starting school soon, and we're thinking about having another baby. Plus, I need the home office. I could help with a down payment on a small house nearby," I offered, desperate to stay close to my grandchildren. Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. "On your budget? Dad, be realistic. A decent condo around here starts at $400,000. The senior apartment is subsidized based on income. It's the sensible option." That night, after they had gone to bed, I sat alone in my room surrounded by half-packed boxes, feeling utterly betrayed. The son I had sacrificed for, supported, and loved unconditionally was throwing me away like an outdated appliance. And the most painful part was his complete dismissal of my worth, both as a father and as a person with dignity and autonomy. The next morning brought the final confrontation that would change everything. I woke early after a restless night, my mind made up. I found Marcus in the kitchen preparing his morning protein shake before heading to the gym. Stephanie was upstairs getting the children ready for their day. "We need to talk," I said firmly. Marcus glanced at his watch. "Can it wait?" "I've got a training session in 30 minutes. "No, it can't wait. This is about yesterday and the retirement home. He sighed impatiently. Dad, we've been over this. It's the best solution for everyone. Everyone except me, I replied. I'm not moving to Ridgewood Senior Living. I'll find my own place, on my own terms. Marcus's expression hardened. With what money? Dad, be practical. You can't afford anything decent in this area on your pension. That's not your concern, I said quietly. Something in my tone must have angered him because his next words came out sharp and cruel. Actually, it is my concern because when you run out of money, you'll expect me to bail you out. That's how it always works with your generation. You didn't plan properly, and now you think your kids should support you. I stared at my son, hardly recognizing the cold, callous man before me. Is that what you think of me? That I'm a financial burden? What else am I supposed to think? He snapped. You worked a blue-collar job for 40 years, never moved up the corporate ladder, lived in the same modest house your entire adult life. Now you're retired with nothing but a basic pension. The math isn't complicated, Dad. His words cut deep, not because they were true, but because they revealed how little he respected the choices I had made, the values I had tried to live by. I want you out by the end of the month, he continued, his voice now businesslike. I'll help with the first 3 months' rent at Ridgewood, but after that, you're on your own. It's more than generous. Considering what? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Considering you lived here rent-free for over a year, he replied coldly. I didn't bother reminding him of my monthly contributions or the expensive repairs I had covered. There was no point. In that moment, I realized that the son I had raised was gone, replaced by someone who measured human worth solely in dollars and status. I'll be out by the weekend, I said simply, turning away before he could see the tears welling in my eyes. Later that day, while Marcus was at work and Stephanie had taken the children to their activities, I called a moving company and arranged for my belongings to be picked up in 2 days. Then I called a real estate agent I knew through a former coworker and explained my situation. I need a temporary rental, something small but decent. While I figure out my next steps, I told her. By Friday, I was moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in a middle-class neighborhood about 20 minutes from Marcus's house. It was nothing special, just a place to sleep and eat while I planned my next move. I left Marcus a note with my new address and phone number, along with a check reimbursing him for the first 3 months' rent he had offered to pay for the retirement home. The first few weeks in that apartment were some of the darkest of my life. The silence was deafening after being surrounded by the noise and energy of young children. I missed Thomas's endless questions and Abigail's giggles. I missed the routine of helping with breakfast and walking Thomas to the bus stop. I tried calling Marcus several times during those first weeks, hoping to at least arrange visits with my grandchildren, but my calls went straight to voicemail. The one time he answered, he was brief and dismissive. We're really busy right now, Dad. I'll call you when things settle down. He never did. As October arrived, bringing cooler temperatures and changing leaves, I realized I would be spending Thanksgiving alone for the first time in my life. Even after Elaine passed, I had always been included in Marcus and Stephanie's holiday gatherings. Now I was an outsider, forgotten and discarded. Depression settled over me like a heavy blanket. I spent days sitting in my sparse apartment, questioning where I had gone wrong as a father. Had I spoiled Marcus too much? Had I not taught him enough about compassion and family loyalty? Was this somehow my fault? One particularly low evening, as I picked at a microwave dinner, my phone rang. It was my old friend Frank, checking in on me. When I told him about my situation, his outrage was immediate and fierce. This is unacceptable, Braxton. That boy needs a reality check. Why are you still protecting him from the truth? For the first time, I seriously considered Frank's perspective. What was I protecting by continuing to hide my financial status? Marcus had already shown his true colors. Revealing my wealth wouldn't change his character, but perhaps it would force him to recognize the faulty assumptions that had led to his cruel behavior. The next morning, I woke with a newfound resolve. It was time to stop hiding in a mediocre apartment, nursing my wounds. It was time to live authentically and create a new life for myself, one that reflected both my values and the financial security I had worked so hard to build. I called Jackson, my financial advisor of 20 years, and arranged a meeting for that afternoon. Jackson's office was located in a sleek downtown building, a stark contrast to the modest surroundings where we had first met decades ago when he was just starting his career. Now he managed hundreds of millions in assets for various clients. But he always made time for me, one of his first and most consistent investors. "Braxton, it's been too long," he greeted me warmly, ushering me into his private office with its impressive view of the city skyline. "What prompted this sudden meeting?" "You usually wait for our annual review." I settled into the leather chair across from his desk. "It's time for a change, Jackson. I need to access some of my funds and make some significant life adjustments." His eyebrows rose slightly. "I see. Are we talking about a new car or something more substantial?" "I'm thinking about buying a house. Something nice, in a good area." Jackson nodded and turned to his computer, pulling up my portfolio with a few keystrokes. "Well, you're certainly in a position to do that. Your current net worth stands at just over $8.4 million. Even though I had watched this number grow over the years, hearing it stated so plainly still gave me a moment's pause. Through decades of consistent saving, prudent investing, and compound interest, my utility worker's salary had transformed into a fortune that would astonish most people, including my son. "What price range are you considering?" Jackson asked. "I'm thinking around $1.5 million, I replied, "and I'd like to pay cash." Jackson whistled low. "That's doable, without significantly impacting your overall financial health." "Any particular area you're looking at?" "Lakeside Estates," I said without hesitation, naming one of the most prestigious neighborhoods in the region, known for its waterfront properties and exclusive community. Jackson's eyes widened slightly. "Going upscale, I see. Any particular reason?" I hesitated, then decided Jackson deserved the full story. Over the next half hour, I explained everything that had happened with Marcus, the eviction, and my current situation. Jackson listened without interrupting, his expression growing increasingly troubled. "I'm sorry you've been through this, Braxton," he said when I finished. "Family difficulties are always the hardest. But I have to say, I've never understood why you've been so secretive about your wealth, especially with your own son." "I wanted him to develop his own work ethic and values," I explained. "I didn't want him waiting for an inheritance or judging people based on their financial status." I laughed bitterly. Ironic, considering how he turned out anyway. Jackson nodded thoughtfully. "Well, if you're ready to live more openly with your wealth, I'm all for it. You've earned every penny through hard work and smart decisions. It's time you enjoyed it." Over the next few weeks, with Jackson's help and a top real estate agent, I found the perfect property. A stunning 4-bedroom waterfront home in Lakeside Estates with panoramic views of the lake, a private dock, and beautifully landscaped grounds. The asking price was $1.7 million, but we negotiated it down to $1.5, and I closed on the property by the end of November. Furnishing the house became a therapeutic project. I selected elegant, comfortable pieces that reflected my personal taste rather than following design trends. An oversized leather sectional for the family room, a dining table large enough for future family gatherings I still hoped might happen, and a state-of-the-art kitchen where I could pursue my newfound interest in cooking. 2 of the bedrooms I set up specifically with my grandchildren in mind. Thomas's room featured a space theme with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling and a telescope by the window. For Abigail, I created a fairy tale inspired space with a canopy bed and a custom-built dollhouse that took up an entire corner. As I settled into my new home, I also began connecting with my neighbors, many of whom were successful business owners, doctors, lawyers, and executives. I was initially nervous about fitting in, but I quickly discovered that most were down-to-earth people who appreciated my straightforward manner and life experiences. One neighbor, Dr. Alan Perkins, invited me to join the Lakeside Community Foundation, which supported various charitable initiatives in the area. "We need more practical-minded people like you," he insisted. "Too many of us get caught up in the theoretical and miss the actual needs of the community." Through the foundation, I found a new sense of purpose. I particularly enjoyed working with a program that taught financial literacy to high school students and young adults. Sharing my journey from utility worker to millionaire became a powerful teaching tool, showing these young people that wealth building was possible through disciplined saving and investing, regardless of income level. My involvement with the foundation led to a feature article in the local newspaper. "Blue-collar millionaire gives back," the headline read, accompanied by a photo of me mentoring students in the financial literacy program. The article detailed my career at the utility company and my path to financial independence through consistent saving and smart investing. It also mentioned my new home in Lakeside Estates and my philanthropic work. I knew it was only a matter of time before the article reached Marcus. Our community wasn't that large, and we had several mutual acquaintances. Sure enough, 3 days after the article was published, my phone rang with Marcus's number displayed on the screen. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail, but curiosity won out. "Hello, Marcus," I answered calmly. "Dad." His voice sounded strained. "I just heard some strange rumors about you. Something about a newspaper article and a house in Lakeside Estates? What's going on?" "It's not a rumor," I replied evenly. "I did buy a house here, and yes, there was an article about my work with the community foundation." A long pause followed. "But how? I don't understand." "What don't you understand, Marcus? That your blue-collar father could afford a home in an exclusive neighborhood, or that he might have something valuable to contribute to the community." "Dad, please," he said, his voice now tinged with desperation. "Can we meet and talk about this? There's clearly been some kind of misunderstanding." I agreed to meet him for lunch the following day at a restaurant near my new home. As I hung up, I felt a mix of emotions: vindication, sadness, and a faint hope that perhaps this revelation might be the wake-up call Marcus needed. The following day, I arrived at Harborview Restaurant 15 minutes early, selecting a table on the outdoor patio overlooking the marina. It was a beautiful late autumn day, unseasonably warm with clear blue skies. I ordered a coffee and watched the boats gently bobbing in their slips while waiting for Marcus. At precisely noon, a familiar black luxury sedan pulled into the parking lot. Marcus emerged from the driver's side, and to my surprise, Stephanie stepped out from the passenger seat. They spotted me on the patio and made their way over, both dressed impeccably, as always. Marcus in a tailored suit despite it being Saturday, and Stephanie in designer casual wear that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. "Dad," Marcus greeted me with an awkward attempt at warmth, leaning in for a quick, stiff hug. "You're looking well. Thank you for meeting us," Stephanie added, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. I gestured for them to sit. "I wasn't expecting both of you. We thought it was important we talk as a family," Marcus replied, signaling for a waiter. "This whole situation has been one big misunderstanding." The waiter arrived, and we ordered drinks and appetizers. Once he departed, Marcus leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Dad, we've been worried sick about you. When you left so abruptly, we didn't know what to think." I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "And then to hear from the Johnsons that you've bought a house in Lakeside Estates and you're some kind of secret millionaire?" Stephanie chimed in. "You can imagine our shock." "I imagine it was quite surprising," I agreed mildly. "Almost as surprising as being told I was a financial burden and needed to move to a subsidized senior living facility." Marcus winced visibly. "About that. I think we had a serious communication breakdown. I never meant to imply you were a burden. I was just concerned about your long-term financial security." "Were you?" I asked, because I distinctly remember you saying, and I quote, "You didn't plan properly, and now you think your kids should support you." Stephanie glanced sharply at Marcus, who had the decency to look ashamed. "I was stressed about work," he mumbled. I said things I didn't mean. So where exactly did all this money come from? Stephanie asked, changing the subject. The article mentioned investments, but it was light on details. It's quite simple, I replied. I saved and invested consistently for over 40 years. 25% of every paycheck, plus all bonuses and overtime, went straight into investments. I lived below my means, avoided debt, and let compound interest work its magic. But your house, your car, your lifestyle, Marcus sputtered. None of it suggested you had this kind of wealth. That was intentional, I explained. Your mother and I agreed that material possessions weren't the measure of success. We wanted to raise you with values that went beyond money and status. Marcus looked genuinely confused. But why keep it a secret from me? I'm your son. Would it have changed how you treated me? I asked quietly. Would knowing I was wealthy have made you respect my career choice more? Or would it simply have changed your expectations of what I should give you? Neither Marcus nor Stephanie had an answer for that. How much are we talking about exactly? Marcus finally asked. My current net worth is approximately $8.4 million, I stated matter-of-factly. Stephanie gasped audibly, and Marcus's jaw literally dropped. The waiter chose that moment to arrive with our appetizers, creating an awkward pause in the conversation. Once we were alone again, Marcus leaned forward, his voice urgent. Dad, you have to understand how this looks from our perspective. You let us believe you were struggling financially. You lived in our home, accepting our help, when all along you could have afforded your own place, or even helped us more with our expenses. I contributed $800 monthly to your household, I reminded him. I paid for the new HVAC system last winter, and the kitchen renovation the year before, hardly accepting charity. But with your resources, you could have done so much more, Stephanie interjected. We've been stretching ourselves thin with the children's activities and the house maintenance. I looked at her incredulously. Are you actually suggesting I should have contributed more to your $1 million home and luxury lifestyle while you were planning to ship me off to a subsidized senior apartment? She had the grace to blush and look away. Let's take a step back, Marcus said, slipping into his professional negotiation mode. Obviously, there have been misunderstandings on both sides. The important thing is that we're family. We should be able to work through this. What exactly are you proposing? I asked. Well, for starters, we'd love to see your new house, he replied with forced enthusiasm. And the children miss you terribly. Thomas asks about you all the time. Does he? I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. In 3 months, you couldn't find time for a single visit or even a phone call to let them speak with their grandfather. Marcus looked genuinely ashamed. I handled this badly, Dad. I was embarrassed about our argument, and then hurt that you left so suddenly. Pride got in the way of doing the right thing, and now that you know I'm wealthy, pride is no longer an issue? I couldn't help asking. That's not fair, Marcus protested, but without much conviction. As we continued our uncomfortable lunch, Marcus made increasingly transparent attempts to repair our relationship, while Stephanie kept steering the conversation toward topics like estate planning and college funds for the children. Their true motives couldn't have been more obvious if they had written them on their foreheads. When the check arrived, Marcus reached for it. Please, let me get this. No need, I said, placing my credit card on the tray. I can afford it. The statement hung in the air between us, highlighting the absurdity of the situation. As we walked to the parking lot, Marcus made one final attempt. Dad, we really want to move past this misunderstanding. Family is everything. Why don't you come over for dinner next weekend? The kids would be thrilled. I stopped and faced my son directly. Marcus, let me be clear. What happened between us wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a revelation of character. You threw me out of your home because you thought I had no value beyond my financial contribution. You made assumptions about my worth based on my career and lifestyle choices. That's not something we can just move past with a dinner invitation. What are you saying? He asked, his voice small. I'm saying that rebuilding our relationship will take more than superficial gestures now that you know I'm wealthy. It will require genuine reflection on your values and how you treat people, regardless of their financial status." Marcus stared at me, speechless for perhaps the first time in his adult life. Beside him, Stephanie shifted uncomfortably. "You're both welcome to visit my new home," I continued, "but only if you're prepared to have an honest conversation about what happened and how we move forward with authentic respect, not convenience or financial interest." As they drove away, Marcus looked devastated, while Stephanie sat rigid beside him. I watched their car disappear around the corner and felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For months I had carried the pain of rejection, questioning my worth and my failures as a parent. Now, I had reclaimed my dignity and set clear boundaries for any future relationship. Whether Marcus could rise to the challenge remained to be seen. In the weeks following our confrontation at the restaurant, I focused on building my new life rather than waiting for Marcus to respond. I continued my work with the Community Foundation, expanded my social circle through a local boating club, and even started taking cooking classes at a culinary school in town. Christmas approached, and I decorated my new home with care, setting up a large tree in the front window and hanging stockings for Thomas and Abigail on the mantel, just in case. As the holiday grew closer with no word from Marcus, I accepted an invitation to join the Perkins family for Christmas dinner, rather than spending the day alone. Then, 3 days before Christmas, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Thomas and Abigail bouncing with excitement on my doorstep, Marcus standing behind them looking nervous. "Grandpa!" they shouted in unison, launching themselves into my arms. "We missed you so much," Thomas said earnestly, his little arms tight around my neck. "Daddy said you have a castle now," Abigail added, her eyes wide. I laughed, feeling joy surge through me at their presence. "Not quite a castle, but I'd love to show you around." I glanced up at Marcus, who nodded slightly. "I thought they should see their grandfather for Christmas," he said quietly. "If that's okay with you." I ushered them inside, and the children raced ahead, exclaiming over the Christmas tree and the lake view. When they discovered the rooms I had prepared especially for them, their excitement reached new heights. "This is better than a hotel," Thomas declared, examining the telescope with reverence. "My own princess bed." Abigail twirled around her room in delight. While the children explored, Marcus and I sat in the kitchen, an awkward silence between us. "No Stephanie today?" I finally asked. "She had a previous engagement," Marcus replied, then sighed. "Actually, that's not true. She's still upset about our conversation at the restaurant. But I wanted to come, to bring the kids. They really have missed you." I nodded, waiting for him to continue. "Dad, I've been doing a lot of thinking," he said, staring into his coffee cup. "About what you said, about character, and how I treated you. You were right. I made assumptions based on your financial status, and I was dismissive of your career and choices. Why do you think that happened?" I asked. "What values led you to those actions?" Marcus considered the question seriously. "I got caught up in status and appearances. Somewhere along the way, I started measuring success in dollars and prestigious titles. I wanted to impress Stephanie's family, my colleagues, even our neighbors." He looked up at me, his eyes sad. "And in the process, I forgot the most important lessons you taught me, which were that character matters more than wealth, that how you treat people defines you more than what you own." He swallowed hard. "That family loyalty should be unconditional." For the first time in months, I saw a glimpse of the son I had raised, the boy who once had values beyond material success. "Recognition is the first step," I said gently. Over the next few hours, as the children played, Marcus and I had the most honest conversation we'd had in years. He acknowledged his materialistic slide and how Stephanie's family's wealth had created pressure to maintain a certain lifestyle. He admitted to feeling embarrassed by what he perceived as my ordinary life and career. "I was wrong," he concluded simply, "and I'm deeply sorry for how I treated you." I accepted his apology, but made it clear that rebuilding trust would take time. "Words are important, but actions reveal true change," I told him. As winter turned to spring, Marcus made consistent efforts to demonstrate his sincerity. He brought the children for weekly visits, called regularly just to check in, and even attended several community foundation events, rolling up his sleeves to work alongside me. Stephanie remained distant at first, clearly uncomfortable with the new dynamic. But as she saw the positive effect on the children of having their grandfather back in their lives, she gradually thawed. By summer, she was joining the family visits occasionally, though our relationship remained cordial rather than close. One evening in June, during a family barbecue on my back deck, Marcus approached me with an idea. "Dad, I've been thinking about Thomas and Abigail's education. Would you consider helping me set up trust funds for them?" I raised an eyebrow. "I thought you might ask eventually." "Not for the reason you think," he clarified quickly. "I want them to have the security, yes, but more importantly, I want them to learn the financial wisdom you tried to teach me. Maybe you could help structure it with conditions that reinforce good values?" His request surprised and touched me. After careful consideration, I worked with my attorney to establish education trusts for both grandchildren with some thoughtful stipulations. They would need to maintain good grades, perform community service hours, and complete a financial literacy program I helped develop. The funds would cover education, and perhaps a first home purchase, but not support a lavish lifestyle without work. Beyond the financial arrangements, I found deeper healing through new connections and purposes. I began mentoring young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, teaching them about personal finance and career development. Many were amazed that a former utility worker could build substantial wealth through consistent saving and smart investing. The secret isn't earning a huge salary, I would tell them. It's being intentional with whatever you do earn, avoiding lifestyle inflation, and understanding the power of compound interest over time. These mentoring relationships brought me immense satisfaction, particularly when I saw young people making positive changes in their financial habits. In many ways, I was giving them the guidance I wished Marcus had truly absorbed. Marcus himself showed gradual but meaningful change. He declined a promotion that would have required more travel and time away from his family. He and Stephanie downsized to a slightly smaller home in a less prestigious but still lovely neighborhood, reducing their financial strain and ostentation. "We realized we were working to pay for a lifestyle that wasn't making us happy," he explained when I asked about the move. "The bigger house, the luxury cars, the exclusive clubs, they were all just attempts to impress people we don't even like that much." By the following Christmas, our family relationship had found a new equilibrium. Not perfect, but authentic and improving. The wounds hadn't disappeared entirely, but they had begun to heal through consistent effort and demonstrated change. As I sit here now, watching Thomas and Abigail play on the dock behind my house, I reflect on the painful journey that brought us to this point. The betrayal I experienced was devastating, but it ultimately led to important revelations and growth for all of us. I learned that sometimes we must stand in our truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Marcus learned that character and values matter more than wealth and status. And hopefully, Thomas and Abigail are learning from both our mistakes and our reconciliation. True wealth, I've come to believe, isn't measured in dollars, but in relationships built on authentic respect and love. Money can provide comfort and opportunities, but it can't buy character or genuine connection. My greatest fortune isn't in my investment portfolio, but in the lessons learned and relationships restored. Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone close to you? How did you handle it? Was forgiveness possible, or did you need to establish firm boundaries instead? Share your story in the comments below. And if you found value in my experience, please like this video and subscribe to hear more life lessons from someone who's learned them the hard way. Remember, in the end, it's not what we have, but who we are that truly matters. Thank you for listening.